Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again with Ronnie Feldman. We're absolutely thrilled today to have with us Katie Lawler. Ronnie, I'm going to pitch it over to you.
Okay, great. What a nice brief introduction. Katie, welcome. This is Katie Lawler. She is the Executive Vice President and Global Chief Ethics Officer of US Bank. I'm very excited to have you on the show. Sorry, let me not talk over your hello. Hello, Katie.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Sure. I'm excited to have you on the podcast for a variety of reasons, but let me set it up this way. You hear US Bank, big conservative organization, financial services. And yet I've known you over the years, having met you at the conferences and those kinds of things, as to be a very creative and innovative person in terms of how you engage employees around these very serious subjects. So it's a perfect juxtaposition for our audience who are often like-minded with us. We want to do things more creative, but are sometimes blocked because they haven't thought through the value of creativity. So we want to talk about a couple of your projects, but just to start off, tell me what's the value of creativity in your program? Talk a little bit about why that's important to you, how it manifests itself, and then we can talk more specifically about projects after that.
Okay. So you kind of nailed it, Ronnie, when you said these are heavy, serious subjects. But I would also say when you're talking about ethics, it is this sort of amorphous, intangible thing. But we're trying to engage employees, and we're trying to engage employees in a big program that is really important. But at the same time, we're trying to help drive behavior change and get engagement, because at the end of the day, ethics is about how each one of us shows up, right? It's how we show up. It's the small decisions, how we treat each other, how we treat our customers. And I think that the other reason we've really gone for creativity is there's so much corporate communication, right? There's so many messages coming at employees. And so we've used creativity to kind of cut through that noise and do something that gets attention and engages employees in a different way. And that's really why I think the creativity has been so important for us.
Yeah, one of the things that I find, just to riff on this for a second, is that everybody, for the most part, people thought that we're all creative people, even the lawyers, even the people who've been doing compliance forever, who come out of a more traditional mindset. But I feel like it falls off. There's a phrase I love, which is the difference between good and great is the slightest twist of the screw. So like we put together a program or put together a training, or we put together some initiative, and then we run out of time or money, and then we don't go that extra step to make it actually watchable or interesting for the audience. And so I like to think that, to me, it shouldn't be thought of as a luxury. It should be thought of something that's essential. Otherwise, people don't pay attention and engage.
I think that's exactly right. You're trying to capture attention, and you're competing with so many other needs and communications and topics. And so that creativity is that extra step that I think is going to grab attention in this world where there is so much competition and so many other things that people have to be aware of. And by the way, you talked about I am a recovering lawyer, but I won't take it personally.
I see. This is the thing. I can't tell you how many times certainly what I do, people who self-select, they come to us and they're like, we want to do something fun, but I'm not creative. They get that all the time. I'm like, sure you are. I don't care what you do for a living. You go home and you watch TV and you watch fun, interesting shows, and you tell jokes to your partners, and you go out with your friends, and we share memes and videos. These are all creative endeavors that I think could benefit by just taking those styles and wrapping it around these very serious subjects so that people will engage with them.
That's exactly right. And that's actually been something that we were given advice on very early on from one of our communications partners internally. He's our video person. And he said, think about what people are already consuming. There's nothing wrong with imitating that. And people love top 10 lists. People love people driving around in cars talking about stuff, right? Which is the one we copied. Seeing what's out there and what people are already consuming and drawn to. So that's exactly been the approach we've taken.
It's awesome. So perfect segue. Let's talk about Ethics RideShare. I've heard about this from you and from other people in the community talk about it all the time. And I love the framing of it already. So maybe just start with telling the audience what that is and how you came up with it and those kinds of things.
It's a video series that we did not too long after we founded the Global Ethics Office. And it was something that our video partner internally is. We are very fortunate to have a team in the bank that does video production for internal and some external, a lot of external use. And we were having a brainstorm. We wanted to use video and do something new. And he said, think about what people are doing. So we came up with this idea, and it's literally me and another executive from the bank, 2 GoPro cameras, and my car. And so we mount, and John, our video guy, laying under a blanket in the back seat, cueing us. So we drive around and we have a conversation. And the idea behind this was, there were a couple of things we were accomplishing. One, ethics is in the driver's seat. So I'm driving. Ethics is in the driver's seat. And so what I wanted to accomplish with it was to demonstrate through these conversations that ethics is something that is embedded in everything we do. So the very first episode, I convinced at the time, the head of our consumer bank, one of our vice chairs, who's a great sport. And he and I drove around and we talked about the real effort and framing in the consumer bank to become central to the lives of our customers, and how that required an intentional focus on doing the right thing and upholding our core values. And so we drove around, we had a conversation, and then John edited it down to about 2 minutes or so. And we put it out with a little Ethics RideShare, and I have an avatar, and then we kept doing them. And so we did 8 or 10 of them. And then there was a global pandemic and we couldn't be together in a car. We did a couple virtual ones that were kind of funny, where I sat in the driver's seat of my car with my cell phone camera, and my colleague sat in the passenger seat of his car with his cell phone camera. And we recorded that. It was really trying to pivot. She's now our president. I took her through a McDonald's drive-thru and got ice cream while we talked. So I just tried to do different things, but really bringing it back to the business of the bank and talking about what we're focused on and why ethics is a central component of that. That was really the objective.
So I love this on a bunch of levels. You're not spending a boatload of money on this. It's you take the resources that you have, you put a framing around it that plays off of either comedians in cars getting coffee or carpool karaoke. Although, do you sing on it? Do you sing?
No. No one should ever hear me sing.
But part of it is literally just the framing of it. Like, you come up with something that is intriguing and people are like, oh, that's different. And then I love that you're getting executives to talk about these things, but it's not a talking head video. It's a conversation. In the improv world, we would say dialogues beat monologues. A monologue can be very one note, but a conversation is very human. And it also humanizes you, the office, and this executive, because people get intimidated by senior executives. So the more they can hear them just talk like a normal human being in something that's fun-ish is super helpful.
I agree. And that's been that humanizing and being accessible, relatable is something that I would say carries through everything my team does. We're very intentional about whatever activity we do. We don't want it to be like some stuffy, intimidating corporate head. I have an intimidating job title, right? My title is intimidating. Where I sit on the org chart can be intimidating to people. And so I'm very deliberate, partially it's just my personality, but I'm very intentional about, I'm just another human being who is here at this company. And I don't want an employee to not feel like they can come to the Global Ethics Office because they're intimidated. I want them to view the Global Ethics Office as, we're actually the office that's here for you employees to help you do what's right. Yeah. And we're here, we're relatable, we're real people. I tell stories all the time about the dumb things that happened to me especially during COVID, because I just want employees to know I'm no different than they are. And I think we've been really successful at that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, there's one more thing I'll say that I'm sorry I've been ignoring you, Tom. We'll get you back involved. But people often tune out ethics, integrity, compliance, all these things, because everybody thinks they have integrity. So they're like, this doesn't apply. I have integrity, and speaking up is, oh yeah, I'll call out bad behavior. But we know that people don't do that because there's all these uncomfortable social dynamics around speaking up. And we know that because people think they have integrity, they don't realize that there's these other influences at play that make otherwise good people sometimes do bad things. So we need to find a way to get them to pay attention to something that they don't think they have to pay attention to. Tom, just checking in, what thoughts are coming through that big brain of yours?
So, Katie, I'm really intrigued by your concern of employees being intimidated by yourself or the corporate compliance office or the hotline or raising their hand or even speaking up. And I wondered, did you find that to become more prevalent during the pandemic and post-pandemic because of the perhaps lack of going to the office every day that we used to do pre-pandemic, where you could actually physically meet employees? Or what strategies have you employed to say, hey, I'm here for you, I'm one of you, I'm one of us, and I'm just Katie?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Tom. So I'm just going to tell a story because I'm a storyteller. On day one of work from home of the lockdowns, I remember it was a Tuesday and I was supposed to be in Europe, and I had 2 weeks of visiting our sites over there. And then my family was meeting for spring break. So I had my calendar empty for 3 weeks, and suddenly everything is canceled. I'm at home. I'm in my bedroom because at the time, third grader and fifth grader had the desk outside in the kind of office area. And I had a folding card table, a stack of books with my monitor on it, which actually I still have today, but I have a proper desk. And I had a dining room chair. And it was weird. It was a weird time, right? And I went we have an online social tool. It's one of the Microsoft tools. I went into used to be called Yammer, and we had an ethics community, and I was joking with one of my teammates and I said, it's like Captain's Log, quarantine, day one, because I'm a dork. And so I went into our community, I wrote Captain's Log, quarantine, day one. And I just wrote 3 paragraphs, very short, simple. Hey, this is a strange time. We got to support each other. We'll get through it, doing what's right. And then people read it and commented on it. So I went back the next day, and I thought 2 to 3 weeks, flatten the curve. That's what we all thought. And I still write it today. Today is day 1,684, I think. And we write something every day. And I was very deliberate, Tom, exactly what you were saying. I wanted to be very relatable. And a part of it was, I thought, gosh, I really wish senior leaders were more open about this is messy and this is hard and this is challenging. And then I was like, you're a senior leader. So I just did it. And we've got thousands of people who follow the blog every day and comment and read it. And I get emails from people thanking me, but it's very relatable. I will talk about, I messed up the car reservation for Thanksgiving. I somehow booked the car for tomorrow instead of Wednesday. And I discovered that this morning. And so I will probably share that. I want them to know I'm a human being. I write about my kids, my cats. I shared one day in August of 2021, I wrote about breaking down in tears and realizing I was burned out. And that was like US Bank. I went like US Bank viral. I got emails and Teams messages and e-cards saying, thank you for telling me I'm not alone. And that was the real moment when I thought we need to be better connected. And so that's why we've kept it up.
Go ahead, Tom. I have some other.
No, go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, so I love this on so many levels. The more that we can get leaders to be vulnerable, which is sometimes hard for because we're in a position of authority, we forget that, because we all think that, hey, we're just regular people, and how intimidating we are. So this is why I love the blog post. So again, something that everybody can do, finding something to relate to your everyday life, or something in the news, or anything that's inspiring to you that you can connect it back to the job that we have to communicate these important issues and make them relatable is super important. So you can make yourself more accessible, but also teachable moments about your kid's soccer game and how there was a parent yelling about a rule or whatever, or obviously something in the news about something ethics related or not, anything that connects to values.
There's a lot of things in the news we don't write about these days.
You're not wrong. Okay, so let me ask you a couple nuts and bolts things, and then we'll see if we have time to talk about another initiative. So for Ethics RideShare, how is that deployed? And then any success stories that you want to share about, like how successful that's been?
Sure. So I described, we literally were driving around with the cameras. So our video person, they'll edit it down, kind of package it up. We've got some graphics that go at the beginning and the end. And then we have an internal platform on the intranet called USB TV, and they load any videos, get loaded there. And then certain ones also get featured on the kind of the homepage. And so we always try to get it featured on the carousel, rotating stories.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that I learned, and it was so funny because the video that got the most views and for a long time was our chief audit executive and I, two of the most exciting people in the company, the head of ethics and the head of audit. And here's why. I have a mug that I had bought several years ago as sort of a joke because I had this banter with one of our audit guys, and it says, "I heart audit," which nobody hearts audit. So I took the mug in the car with me. And at one point, as Candace and I were talking, I just pulled out the mug and kind of pretended to drink while I was driving. And that still shot of me with the I Heart Audit mug was what the still that showed up on the internet. And I think that clever little hook is what got people. So that's one of the things we've learned is to get people to click, is have that something that really captures their attention. Whether it's an article with a really pithy title, because in banks or in corporations, you don't usually get cute little titles. We have an article coming out about gifts and entertainment next week that is going to be about the gift giving era, playing on Taylor Swift. So just little things like that where you can grab people's attention, or if it's a meme or something that gets people's attention, to get them to click, because you want them to click. There's so many things, again, you're competing for attention. It's good clickbait in this. It is. Have you had a decent, we haven't prepped on this, so I don't know what the answer is, but some companies struggle with investing a lot of time and not getting a lot of clicks. And then I always like to reframe it. Wait a minute, what's a lot? What's a little? Like any attention's more attention than you were getting before. And then also just the importance of measurement in general. So you assume you're measuring click-through rates or access and things like that? We can measure a couple of things. We can see how many people viewed it. And that's obviously your top metric. I will say most of our videos, less than 10% of the population clicks on it. So if you're in that range, you're doing well. Our videos, as they got more popular, they will compete with the CEO's quarterly video in terms of the number of views. So I felt really good about that. The other thing we can measure is how much of it people watched. So we can see and that helps us know how long to keep it. We try to keep these tight because you lose people after about a minute 15, minute 30. So keeping them short is really key. So those are some of the things that we look for. And then just purely anecdotally, I was at the airport early one morning I was going to New York, and I saw somebody with a US Bank lapel pin on. I didn't know him, so I kind of went back to sleep. But then I went to throw my coffee cup away, and he came up to me and he mimed driving. And he said, "Are you the ethics lady?" As he mimed driving because he knew my videos. So it was some of that anecdotally, and that anecdotal, people tell me they like them. But really, we watch how many people watched it, how far in did they watch it, and how does it compare to other videos the company's putting out. And ours tended to perform very well. Are you on a regular cadence? Is it monthly or whenever you can kind of get around to cranking them out? Whenever we can get around to it. We haven't done a rideshare since we've kind of come back, but we're trying some new things. Yeah, it's good. A big theme that Tom and I have is variety is the spice of life. Like you have something that's successful, let's do it for a while. Let's let us run its course. Let's try something else for a while. You can bring it back. It'll be more powerful when it comes back, but you're trying to get a lot of different types of people. So you have to try a lot of different types of things. And I love the idea of you're summing it up really importantly about the fact that people will come and talk to you. They're talking to the ethics officer. They're more likely to bring a problem to you, whether they know the answer or not, if they feel like you're a comfortable human being that they can relate to. And the other thing, pithy title, fun image, anything to get people to click. If you're like, ethics is very important. We take it seriously every day. It's part of everything we do. Click on this link. No one's clicking on that link. You have to drive it through these other creative things. Tom, checking in. What are your thoughts?
I guess, Katie, the thing I wanted to pick up on from the captain's log was actually two things. One, obviously the creativity part that we talked about, but what happened to me during the pandemic was I had time to think. And like you said, you had 3 weeks where your calendar, all work for me ended when they shut the country down for a couple of months. And so I literally had time to think for the first time in a long time. And I thought about what I want to do, how I want to do it, and how can I deliver it. And it sounded like you had some time to think. And maybe one of the lessons we can try to bring forward out of the pandemic is sometimes you just need to think of something new or something different. And we all tend to rush so much when we're doing our professional jobs, the three of us, that maybe that is something that we could draw from because we literally had time to do that. And you came up with that as a way to make that connection. So it just seemed to me that in addition to the creativity you showed by starting that, it was also you had some time to yourself or time to do something you may not have done for a long time. And for me, certainly the pandemic gave me that opportunity for a couple of months to kind of reassess and just think. So maybe we need to spend a little more time with the TV, the lights off, or however we do it, and just think.
I think that's so true, Tom. Well, the initial post was sort of a whim. It really was just a whim. But at the same time, it became very deliberate over time because I had time to think about what do I want to accomplish with this. And what I wanted to do was help employees stay connected and feel, at a time when people were feeling very isolated. And I wanted to help people to feel connected to my team as a support system. So every day I would share an article. So that was part of it, was I would share an article of something, whether it was self-care. There were so many articles coming out, especially early in the pandemic, and as I thought about, as people were isolated, we make better ethical decisions when we're around other people and get other people's perspectives. There was a lot of pressure and anxiety. Again, what does that mean for people's ability to exercise good judgment or see broadly? And there was a lot of change. So there were risk factors in the environment as well that I wanted to, like you said, Ronnie, we're not going to go at it and say, this is ethics, you are alone, you must do no. It was much more subtle, and it was just helping people find ways to stay connected and highlight for them some of the things and share information that would be relevant to people during that time. So you're right, Tom. I think that slowing down allows us to take that time to really think, what does this moment need? And how can we help fill that need? And that, I think, is what this turned into over pretty short order.
I love that. What does this moment need?
And one of the things that I'm taking away from this is, look, nobody has time, right? So we may not have the luxury of having that kind of significant amount of thinking time again. But I think the thing that I think about is we need to set aside some time to turn the screw a little tighter, which is, and by that, add a creative element to the thing. You've got your training, you've got your messaging, you have what are the different things that you can do to put a fun wrapper around a very serious subject so that it will stand out for all the reasons that you've mentioned. We have to be intentional about set aside time to take it to that one step. Analogies, a colleague said to me one time was like, we spend all this time making these things, these courses, these trainings, these policies, and then it's sort of like DoorDash, and then we give it to someone and they throw it over the fence and they go, here's your food. You have this 4-course, this big meal, and you're like, no, let's put a tablecloth on it and deliver it in a way that's palatable for people. So we've gone a little bit long, but there was a couple other topics we want to talk about. Do you maybe quickly want to share, just touch on a couple that you did an ethics, was it Mythbusters?
Yeah, this is our new video. So this is our new video, and it is Ethics Mythbusters. And this one is, I'm glad we're taking the time to talk about this one, Ronnie and Tom, because this is so DIY, anybody can do it. Now, we do have our video guy help. He put a little wrapper on the front. He created a little Ethics Mythbusters animation. But this one, I literally just talk into my iPad for 90 to 120 seconds. there's a lot of myths and beliefs about whether it's speaking up, or if the ethics line is a black hole, and if I report it, nothing's going to happen, or you can never have a second job if you work here, or I have someone on my team who he kind of collects some of these myths, pays close attention. And so we picked one. So the first one we did was that you can't have a second job. And so we used it as a way to talk about, first one was that nothing happens when you call the ethics line. And for 2 minutes, I just talked about what actually does happen, why the ethics line is something you can trust. It really is, it's just me and my iPad, and I talk, and then we send off the file to John. He puts a little video, which you don't have to do. That's what I love about this one, is anyone can do it, and it's free. It doesn't have to cost you a penny. And then we get the file and we upload it onto the Viva Engage community, the Microsoft community. Right now, that's how we're pushing that one out. We're not even loading it on the intranet proper. We're just pushing it out through the blog you might get a couple hundred to 1,000, 1,200 views, but it's starting to get shared elsewhere. So that we can do the turnaround on that too is just a matter of, even using our video person, it's a matter of days. And so far, I don't want to brag, but I've done both of them in one take. So it's really simple. It's just, I sit down, I start talking, I go into some fugue state. I don't even know what's coming out of my mouth, and then we're done.
So I want to underestimate the fact that you put a creative wrapper around it. So is it just some titling? Is there a music? Do you frame it up as a Mythbusters thing? That's a hard thing to say. Mythbusters thing?
It is hard to say. We do. Yeah. So it's Ethics Mythbusters, and there's John put a little animation that precedes it. And then it's episode 1. So we've done 2 episodes. Our goal for that is to do it about every month to every other month. And the other thing is, we just do these ourselves. And so we're not having to go through, for right or wrong, we aren't going through corporate communications.
So you have your newsletter, what you call USB TV, whatever. So your newsletter, that's access that you can get for a broad audience because it already exists. So the more you create creative things, you get access to these channels that maybe you wouldn't have before. And then I love like the Viva Engage. Is that the old Yammer? Is that
Yeah, that's Yammer.
Yeah. So that's a channel made to socialize things. And I don't know
it's your virtual water cooler. Yes. Right. You've got a dispersed workforce. Even as we've brought people back to the office, we still have people all over the country and in Europe who aren't seeing one another face to face, even if they're coming to an office. So it is the virtual water cooler. And I like using it with that in mind, of it's a way for people to connect with each other.
And so we haven't talked about this, but that I often recommend to my clients that use these channels. You got to post something interesting, pithy, entertaining in some fashion, and then people will engage in it over time. People will tell their friends and go, "Oh, did you see that thing?" And you can use it to drive traffic to policies and resources. If you're posting a video, put the fun thing next to the important thing. The fun video on story about the conflicts of interest policy, and then you're driving traffic to a policy which you can measure. So you get the engagement around your video, but hopefully also other things that if something were to happen, you have more measurement tools. So I love this. So let's just sort of try and wrap up. I have a couple of thoughts on things that are sort of coming over to me, but any lessons learned that you would have for people who want to start doing these things, Katie, for selling these into their organization? Any words of wisdom?
I think don't be afraid to try. Would be one of the biggest lessons is don't be afraid to try something new. Maybe it'll flop, but maybe it won't. And quite frankly, I think you said it at the very beginning. If I get 10 people to watch, that's 10 people more than none. Different people want to consume different things. That's why some people want to read the Viva Engage. Some people want to view a video. Sometimes we put an article on the intranet, multiple modalities, and you can do things that don't have to be expensive. And that's what I like about this is you can be creative, you can try new things without a lot of investment if you're willing to kind of put yourself out there, but it needs to be authentic too. And I think that's part of our success is we've focused on that authenticity, that vulnerability, just being human beings and there's no corporate jargon allowed in any of my videos. No corporate jargon. I'm not a fan.
And you were able to, because of this, involve other senior leaders into your thing. You created a property where other leaders can participate in. getting leaders on board is huge.
Mm-hmm. Even the Viva Engage community with the blog, other group, it is probably probably the most prolific poster in the company. Other groups come to us and ask us to highlight their things that, again, we can show that relation. So every year I am asked to kick off Security Awareness for Everyone Week, which is Information Security Month. And it happens to coincide with Fat Bear Week at Katmai National Park in Alaska, which is one of my favorite weeks of the year. And so I have managed to find ways to make information security and fat bears a thing. It's all about fishing. But groups come to us and they ask us to feature their stuff because they know we've got more reach than they do. That's been part of the fun too, is that it helps us to collaborate with other people internally.
It's great. So a couple high-level takeaways for me is being more creative is a more effective solution for all the reasons that we've said. It gets you to stand out, cut through the noise and stand out and get noticed. It humanizes you and your program, makes you relatable and approachable, which is perhaps the most important thing. It helps you get other people involved. It gets you metrics on things that matter, meaning like people are choosing to engage in this thing. One thing that drives me crazy is we do a big, boring, bloated annual training, which maybe I would argue it's debatable, but say we all do that. But that has very little to do with affecting behavior. That's about sharing some knowledge and showing that everybody did something. All the things that you're talking about are ways that actually impact the dynamic and culture of your organization in a positive way. Being creative is a better business. It's a better business model.
Totally agree.
Tom, anyway, you want to bring us home?
Sure. Katie, I was wondering if our listeners wanted to connect with you, perhaps on LinkedIn. Would that be an appropriate way for them to reach out?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I also want to acknowledge you for winning Compliance Person of the Year last year at ECI. So that's a big shout out. I was at that presentation. That's why I knew about the Captain's Log and Star Trek. Congratulations for that. Great work there. And you've really given us a lot to think about and talk about. So I hope we can continue this conversation.
I would love that. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.